So are you going to join me or not? The girl I'm going to talk about does have an animal companion that talks. I know you don't talk, but Gigi does. Do you at least want to come over here and you can make an appearance in the video? Come on, over here. Over. Or up. There. Now you got an appearance from the Brenda. She's like, you're going to talk about someone with a cat. I demand pets. There. I pet you. She's like, you were gone for hours. And hours. And I was alone. So as you probably guessed by the title and the Kiki's Delivery Service shirt, I am going to be doing a review of the 1989 Kiki's Delivery Service for the for my Miyazaki / Studio Ghibli movies. It was written, directed, and produced by Hayao Miyazaki, so it is one of the ones that he is, you know, full control over. Hi. And Brenda would like to have her say in it. She's like, you're not allowed to talk about cats. It's like, well, I have to talk about Gigi because he is an awesome cat. She's like, there's a dog in this movie. Talk about him. There is a dog. You are correct. There is a dog in this movie. His name is Jeff. And he is a very good puppy. Just like you. You're a very good puppy, too. Yes, you are. But I have to talk now. You can lay on the bed. She's like, but, I want you to pet me. I can pet a little more. So, as I said, Kiki's Delivery Service came out in 1989. I believe, if I'm remembering my Disney history correctly, that is also the same year that The Little Mermaid came out, I believe. I think, don't quote me on that, but I think that would be correct. And it is based off of a children's book by the same name as Iko Kondono. But that was, you know, about the adventures of a witch with a delivery service and such. So there's a cute setup there that they have. Going into the actual story of the movie, as is with a lot of these Ghibli movies that were some of the first ones out, there are generally like three different, or like there's the original Japanese version, and then there's generally like two different dubbed versions, because this one has the original Japanese that came out in 1989, and then there was a Streamline Pictures one that was done in 1990 that was an English dub of this, and then there's the Disney dub of this that came out in 1998. And that's going to be the main one that I am familiar with, because that's the one that I've seen, is the Disney one with Kirsten Dunst and Phil Hartman, may he rest in peace, and Tress MacNeille, and, you know, a bunch of that stuff. So I will be referencing that again at the end, but for the most part, yeah, I'm more focusing on like the English dub that is the Disney dub that they did, because Disney had made this deal with Ghibli for a certain distribution time frame. I think it was like 15-year time frame. That was like when Spirited Away came out. They wanted to have Disney be like the American distribution for Buena Vista Home Video, for the distribution setup for how those went out. So they got dubbed by Disney, and that's why, you know, Nausicaa and Castle in the Sky and Totoro and Kiki and Spirited Away and Porco Rosso and a bunch of those ones, for a certain time frame, were all dubbed by Disney, and then after a certain point in time they switched over to a different company when like their setup with Disney not necessarily fell through, but it just kind of ended, and like I guess it wasn't renewed or something, I'm not sure. But into the actual story for Kiki's Delivery Service. So the movie itself centers around this young witch named Kiki, who's 13 years old, and she is a trainee witch, or a witch in training. And it is the time where, for reference, and I did not realize this until last night when I was looking up notes for this, Kiki is supposed to have been born in 1947, so this movie is supposed to be taking place in like 1960. And given the stuff that we see in the movie in regards to like the technology that we see in the movie, like the TVs and stuff like that, I can agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. And that was not something I'd picked up on. um, I knew it did not take place in like modern day, that like when the movie was being made, but I just wasn't sure. But like, she is a 13-year-old witch, and it is the witch's tradition that when a witch turns 13, that she is supposed to leave home for a year to train. And then, they can, try to figure out what their specialty is as a witch. And we are introduced to Kiki, and she is just lounging in the grass listening to this radio talk about, there's an air balloon that's going to be coming through, but it also is going to be a beautiful night and a full moon. And she decides that she wants to go and leave home tonight. So she runs back to the house, and she tells her mother and her father. Well, her mother is there, and her mother is a witch. And her mother is a witch whose specialty is potions. And Kiki runs in and just starts talking to her mother, and she's like, Mom, and she looks over, and like there's one of their clients that is visiting them. That's Miss Dora, who is supposed to be just like one of the elderly ladies that lives in the little town that they live in. And Kiki is like very polite and everything like that to Miss Dora, and then she goes back to her mom, and she's like, Mom, tonight's gonna be the night. There's gonna be a full moon, and I want to leave tonight. And she's like, but I thought you were gonna leave next month. And she's like, no, but I want to leave on the perfect night, and it might be a cloudy night next time, and I want to go on the perfect night for the full moon. And the mom's like, okay. And Kiki's just like running off to go, and she tells her cat Gigi that it's just like, we're gonna go tonight and everything. So she's working on getting packed. And Kiki's mother and Miss Dora talk for a little bit, and Miss Dora is like, I remember when you first showed up here, and you're just, a witch flew down from the sky with a black cat on a broom, and you were going to be town witch. And there is one thing that I just adore that they set up in this movie, for how like Kiki's town is set up. First of all, both of her parents are extremely supportive. And I love that. That is one thing that generally tends to happen a lot in Miyazaki movies, or in Studio Ghibli movies, is that for the most part, the parents tend to be very supportive of their children, show these like healthy parental, parent-child relationships. Spirited Away has a little bit of a different take on that with how things go with like Chihiro and her parents. But for the most part, Studio Ghibli movies have very good parent-children relationships depicted in various different ways. And I love the fact that within Kiki's town, that everyone is just like, okay, it's just perfectly common that they have a witch that lives in their town that makes potions and everything like that. And like Kiki's a witch, and like we see, Miss Dora is just, like, I can't believe your little baby is 13 already. I remember when you showed up here when you were 13 years old. Hi. The dog is back. Hi, baby girl. Hi, I love you. Hi, you're a good girl. Yes, I do. I do love you. I'm a good girl. And what ends up happening is, like, so Kiki's getting ready to go, and her mother is explaining to Miss Dora that, like, when a witch turns 13, it's time for her to leave home. But I haven't had time to teach Kiki how to make potions, and she can barely fly. And, so the mom is very worried, but she is supportive of her daughter. Then we see Kiki up in her room getting all packed and everything, and she has her black cat Gigi, who is there as well, who is a talking black cat, because of course Gigi is a talking black cat, which I love. And Gigi and her are just, Gigi is kind of this, well, as he's described at one point, very smarmy and snarky and very self-satisfied, and kind of is a little bit selfish, but still very supportive of Kiki. And stuff like that. So what ends up happening is, Gigi's like, well, I thought we were going to leave on a different night. And she's like, no, what if we have to leave tonight and everything? It's like, tonight's going to be perfect. And so like she's running around getting packed, and her dad shows up, drives up. And I love the fact that her dad is just like an everyday like salary man, like a businessman type of a thing or whatever, and like has just like a normal job. And then he's married to a witch, and he comes home to this house that has like a greenhouse filled with all of these herbs and potion ingredients and everything like that. And he's just like, he's nonplussed about it. He's like, yeah, this is what I signed up for. I fell in love with a witch, and this is the life I lead now. And what happens is, Kiki's like, Dad, I'm gonna go tonight. And he's like, I thought we were gonna go on the camping trip. And she's like, no, I'm gonna go tonight. And he's like, okay. And then the dad goes inside, and he's like calling all of the people in town, telling them that Kiki's gonna be going, and calling his mom, his parents, telling them that she's gonna be going at midnight and everything. And, and then we go back up and we see Kiki and her mom again, and her mother is, getting her into this, it's not a black witch's dress. It's like a very dark, violet color, very dark purple, very dark blue, color that they put her in. And she's like, witches have been wearing this color for a very long time. And, it doesn't matter how your dress looks. It's about the heart that's underneath it. And, Kiki's like, I'm going to be the very best witch that I can be and everything like that. And, Kiki's very determined of that, and her parents are very supportive. And we see, Kiki, the mom leaves and the dad comes in, and Kiki and her dad are talking. And again, we get this very good depiction of a healthy parent-child relationship where, her dad's very proud of her and everything like that. I was like, you're all grown up now. When did you grow, why didn't you tell me you were growing up so fast? That type of a thing where you have that realization where you're the parent that's looking at the kid, and you're realizing that your kid is kind of grown up now. And, most parents have that at some point with their kids. Even like grandparents have that with grandkids, or I've had that times with my nieces and nephew where I'm just like, I stop growing so much. You're and it's not that it makes you feel old, although that is kind of the case at times, where you do feel old at times because like they're growing up. But it's just like, you've grown so fast, and it's just like, it's like counting down the days. And like, I have a cousin that's going to graduate soon. That's the youngest grandkid on my grandpa's side. I'm actually recording this the day after my grandpa's 92nd birthday. And we just had like a little party for him and everything. What are you doing? Come on, up on the bed. But like, so like I have a cousin that's going to be graduating from high school soon, and she's, the youngest of all of us cousins. And so it's just like, and we're all going to be out of high school, all going to be off in the world to some degree, and everything. So, it's like, counting down the days, like, when did they grow up so fast and everything like that. So, that's kind of like the realization moment that they're showing with Kiki's father and everything. And even Kiki's mother was like, she, growing up so fast and everything. And what else we see is, we have this cute moment with, Kiki and her dad where he, lifts her up in the air and like spins her around, when she was little, as she says, and everything. And, the dad's just like normal about this with, I have a witch, the daughter that's a witch, and I'm married to a witch, and the daughter's going to go off on her own now and everything like that. So we have those moments in it. And then we cut to where we see that, a good chunk of the town has turned out to wish Kiki goodbye and wish her good luck. And we see them, they're just, they're all really happy for her and everything. And we even see Kiki talking with like a bunch of the girls that would probably be like the girls that she grew up with in the village. And again, one of the things that I love about the movie is that it depicts this as the village, the town or so that she's from is very, very supportive of her and of her mother and of their family and everything like that. And like, they show up and they're happy to wish her luck on her way and everything. And like the girls that are part of her village or town or whatever, that were like her classmates or whatever, are, just, wishing her luck and very happy for her and everything. A little jealous that she's going to get to go and do this, but they're really happy for her and everything. And Kiki's like, well, to be a good witch, I have to go away from home and prove myself and, prove that I can take care of myself and everything. And, the girls are just really supportive of her. And I love that they show that in the movie because, like, in most movies where, witches are depicted, look at, I was trying to think, well, look at Hocus Pocus, where, like, the witches are burned at the stake and different things like that, or different things along those lines, where it's, so much time frame is just like witches are just, horrible, evil things. And in this case, it's like, no, the witches are welcome into the town and they're not ridiculed. Kiki is just like a little girl like all the others, even if she is a witch. The town is supportive of her. They go to her mother, and it's not like this, backroom deal type of thing. That's just always been one of those things I love about the movie. And, so Kiki's ready to go, and her mom has Kiki take her broom as opposed to this broom that Kiki just made. And so Kiki is, she gets hugs from her parents, and she heads off on the broom. And we see that she has some trouble with flying and stuff, and we see her, get going, and then she like bounces off of one tree and into another tree, and like, causing bells to go off. So, and she flies off and eventually, gets flying straight, and she heads off, and the town's all wishing her good luck. And one of the guys in the town is just like going to miss the sound of those bells, because it's like, that meant that Kiki was trying to fly and stuff like that. So it's like she was home and everything. It's like the town's not quite the same without her. And it's like, and it's not that Kiki is like taking this lightly. She is excited about this, and she's happy that she's going to go and get to do all of this. But she's also like, she is going to miss her parents and her town and everything like that. And the people in the town that are her friends and that have watched her grow up and everything. So I like how they show that. There's that bittersweet element to it. And her and Gigi are flying, and they turn on the radio, and like there's like this nice, song and everything. There's two good songs in this movie. There's one at this point, there's one at the end that I really love that they play, that I really like. And so like we see Kiki flying over like all these different towns and everything like that, and eventually she ends up running into this other witch that is, this witch that's, just like finishing up her training. Like she's been out for the year, and she's rather stuck up and snooty type of a witch and everything. And her cat even seems stuck up and snooty. And so like she's trying, so like Kiki's trying to talk to her and get advice. And the witch is being very condescending to Kiki and everything like that. And she's being polite, but it's like the passive aggressive type of politeness, where it's just like, well, it was easy for me because I tell fortunes about love and everything like that. And, so it's like, she's just being very snooty and everything. And like they part ways, and, and then there's a storm that hits, and Kiki and Gigi end up, having to take refuge, shelter inside of a train. And they end up in like this, giant place, part of the train that's carrying hay and everything like that. And they end up sleeping in the hay, which looks super, super freaking itchy to me. I'm just like, oh God, no, no, too itchy. And they wake up the next morning, and like the train has been going, the train started up while they were asleep. And like the cat, Gigi keeps making various comments throughout all of this, sarcastic and snarky comments and stuff like that. During these moments, which is just funny and everything like that. And I think one of the benefits is that because you don't necessarily always see Gigi's mouth moving when he talks, because he could be like his face is off screen, or you're not looking at him when he talks. So the voice actor that voices Gigi is able to get away with a bit more of like, snarky comments from Gigi, as long as you have like Kiki respond in kind when it's time. So I like how they do that in the movie. So that gives Gigi a little bit of a leeway. And like certain characters do that a lot in anime. Particularly even when you're like dubbing them and everything like that, where they can add in lines and stuff like that if necessary for certain things. As long as they still fit the context of what's going on. But, they wake up the next morning, and they find out that the hay that they slept in is food for the cows. So Kiki gets woken up by the cows, and then they, get up out of the train, and they look out, and they see that there's this town that they're getting close to that is like this big city that looks like it's floating on waves and everything like that. So it'd be like a city that's on like a peninsula or something. And, she's looking at that, and she's like, I want to go here. And she's like really excited, and they fly off, and they fly toward the city, and like everybody that's just like sees them is just like watching her fly, because like they haven't seen a witch. And she goes to the clock tower, and the clock tower guy is just like, yeah, well, there's no witches that live in this town, or at least not for a long time. And she's like, oh good, then this can be my town. And so like, we see her flying through the town, and like everybody is just like staring up at her. Like, this girl just flying around on a broom, and everything. and she almost causes a traffic accident. One of the things one of the side things, or like the little, additional things that they show in this is like in the background, there's like a bus that drives around, and the bus says like Studio Ghibli on it. So I like that. And a lot of the signs are in English and stuff like that. Because it's supposed to be like a European type town that like Kiki is living in. In regards to like the structural, the architecture of the island and the buildings and everything like that. And I love the design of this town. It's beautiful. And she like introduces herself to the people that are there, and then they're just kind of like brush her off a little bit. She ends up having like this interaction with like a traffic cop who tries to like get, kind of like gives her a citation is what he's trying to do. But then he gets pulled away by someone who's actually tricking him and calling thief and making him run off and everything. And then Kiki ends up meeting this boy called Tombo, who is this, he's a 13-year-old boy who saw her flying, and he is very obsessed with aviation and flight and everything like that. And he's just very enamored with her being a witch and everything like that. And so he's like trying to follow her around and everything. And he's very hyper, but he's not necessarily being the most polite. But then again, we're getting this difference where like Kiki even like kind of knocks him on this, where she's like, it's very rude to talk to a girl without having properly introduced yourself first, or even asked her name or something like that. And then he like compares her to his grandma, which is not a good comparison. And then she just like flies off. And like there's this moment where she rebuffs him, and then she like keeps walking. And then he just like has this big smile on his face, and it's just like, oh, he got it bad. Tombo's got it bad. So Tombo is just head over heels for Kiki very quickly, and like Kiki is trying to figure out a place where she can stay in town. She tries to go to this hotel, and like the hotel won't let her stay there because they're like, well, where are your parents? And she's like, oh, never mind. And she leaves. And then like she's getting a little bit depressed about this because like she had the bad interaction with the cop, and then Tombo wasn't the best, and like everybody's being very not necessarily impolite to her, because I perfectly understand like having like a 13-year-old stay in a hotel on their own is very it's very Home Alone. This hotel manager seems to be much more responsible than the ones that were in New York, at that hotel. And what ends up happening is, of course, Kiki and Gigi end up actually meeting this woman whose name is Asano, who is the owner of the the way it's just said is like the Good Cooking Pan Bakery is the way that it's said, but it's like spelled like very much not necessarily that. It's like a much more like Germanized version of it or something like that. Good Cooking Pan Bakery or whatever is the way that it's like spelled out or whatever. It's like Good Cooking Pan Bakery is just how they spell it, or it's just how they say it in the English dub, which is like thank you. And they meet Asano, and she is very, very heavily pregnant. And Asano needs to return this, this baby's pacifier down to this mother who is just in her bakery and is too far away now. And Kiki offers to deliver it, and she flies it down, and she's like, oh, I can deliver that. And Asano's like, okay. And Kiki like jumps onto this wall, and then jumps onto the broom, and then like jumps down. And Asano is just like, oh my God, which, yeah, understandable reaction if you see someone jump off of a wall on a broom. Oh my God. And like Kiki flies down and delivers the pacifier to the mom and the baby and everything. And she ends up, and like Gigi's also made comments about like, I'm sure we can try to find a different town, one that's bigger and better than this and everything like that, because he's like trying to make her feel better or something like that. As I said, he's very snarky, but also very kind of like a skeptic at times to a degree. He adores Kiki and she loves him and everything like that, but like he warms up to the city a bit more as the movie goes on. But what ends up happening is, she delivers the pacifier, and then she comes back to the bakery, and she ends up, Asano ends up talking to her and taking her into the bakery, and she, thanking her and everything, and they end up, having this nice little introduction to to each other, and Asano gives Kiki, or gives Gigi, like cream or milk or whatever, and Gigi like looks at her at one point, and Asano winks at him, and he's just like, like just like kind of thrown by that, which I find hilarious. And like Asano's husband, who has a name, but I cannot remember what his name is. Um, he's just like, okay, this is a thing now. Who's this girl talking to my wife? But like, she's, the bakery's downstairs, home is upstairs, and Asano and Kiki end up talking, and Kiki's like, well, I don't know if I'll be staying in this town. And Asano's like, well, I would like it if you stayed in this town. And Kiki's like, well, and Asano's like, how about this? You at least stay here tonight, and you can stay in our spare room up in the attic. And she's like, okay. And Asano takes her up to the spare room, and she's like, I can't really help you clean right now because, like, I'm really pregnant. Like, she's really pregnant. And Kiki's like, that's okay. And, like, the whole place has, like, this thin layer of flour over it, which is just kind of funny. And Gigi's like, this isn't dust on the floor. It's flour. So if you wake up in the morning and find a white cat, it's me. I kind of wish that was a joke that they ran with and like paid off at some point, but I know that that's not necessarily, like, that may not have been the same joke that happened in the Japanese that they did in English. But like that would have been a funny thing to pay off with him, covered in flour one morning. That would have been funny. So Kiki and Gigi end up. Hi. Nothing, pretty girl. So they stay the night, and Kiki determines that this is where she is going to stay. She's going to stay in this town, and she's going to try to find other nice people like Asano. And so that's her intention. And then the next morning, Kiki goes and she talks to Asano, and she explains that she is going to start a delivery service because when she had come back from the lady that gave her the pacifier, or that she had to return the pacifier to, she had like a note for Asano, and Asano reads the note, and she's like, your new delivery girl is really something. So she's going to start her own delivery service. And Asano's like, how about this? You can stay in the attic, and I'll throw in a free breakfast if, I am like one of your first clients. And since I'm so pregnant, you mind the store every now and then. And Kiki's like, thank you, and everything. So Kiki's really happy about that. But we have this cute interaction between the husband and Gigi, where like the husband is like, he's kind of showing off a little bit to Gigi, which is kind of funny. Where like he pulls down like this, these trays of bread that have like been like probably sitting overnight to, let them rise and everything like that. And he like spins the trays around and then like lowers them down on the counter like perfectly and poses and looks at Gigi, and Gigi's impressed. So I like that. Asano and her husband probably had like a bit of a talk the previous night about like Kiki and everything. So like to be like, okay, honey, I'm gonna offer her to stay here if she wants to, and he'll be like, okay, fine. As long as the cat doesn't get fur on everything, that's fine. So we have like this cute little interaction there. And even after like Asano and Kiki make her deal, and like Kiki's really happy and ready to help and everything. Help around the bakery as she can and everything like that. Even, the husband kind of winks at Gigi like, yeah, this is going to go well. So it's just like, we have this like little funny thing. The husband is a little bit like the Greek choir that they have in like Greek tragedies and stuff like that, where like they will like offhand to the, like side, talk to the audience and stuff like that. The husband's a little bit like that. And what ends up happening is, Kiki goes out and she has to buy some stuff though. She'll have some other food in her little, in her little apartment. But first she cleans the whole apartment area, which is kind of nice. She cleans that, and then her and Gigi go shopping. And so while they're shopping, she gets like a big frying pan and some other stuff that can be useful for like pancakes or cooking and stuff like that. And Gigi finds a mug that has his face on it and everything. And so Kiki buys that, and she doesn't have a whole lot of money left, but like at one point when they're on their way back and she looks through this window, like this boutique window of a store, she sees these like very pretty, very red, pretty slippers that I think are supposed to be a reference to like the ruby slippers from the Wizard of Oz. With Kiki being a witch and wanting the red slippers and can't have them because, well, in this case, she doesn't have the money, not because they're on the feet of a girl from Kansas. But, so Kiki kind of wants the pretty shoes, which is fair. They don't look very comfortable, but she wants the pretty shoes. And we, so she gets back, and then Asano has gotten her a client. And the client wants Kiki to deliver this birthday gift to her nephew, Kit, or however you want to pronounce it. And Kiki's like, I can do that. And Kiki's very polite to the woman, and apparently she's a fashion designer that's just like this client from that comes to the bakery a lot, everything like that. I think she lives like next door to where the bakery is. That's what you have. I see. She got this yesterday. Has a squeaker. The squeaker is already broke. She broke it already. You might be a little bit too loud while I'm dialing with that, baby girl. She's like, are you going to stop me? I don't know. Should I? I get a little satisfaction out of her destroying that because it's a Girl Scout chew toy. And I didn't like being in the Girl Scouts. I had issues with that. Why are you doing that? Oh. Dog treat in the middle of the video with Brenda. Hi. You really have to do that right now? She's like, you're the one that called me up here. Okay. So Kiki's first job is to deliver this birthday gift that is actually like this, nice bird cage that has this little black cat in it that looks like Gigi, and fly it up to where Maki's nephew is, to her sister's house. And so, Kiki heads off to do that. Now she's flying off. Tombo actually sees her fly off, and he runs over and talks to Asano. And so they end up talking. Now we have that Kiki is flying on her first trip, and she's like using a map to get to where she needs to go, and it's like up the coast from the city. So she's flying up that way, and on the way they end up running into this flock of geese that they kind of end up talking to, and then the geese get blown away by a very strong gust of wind, and Kiki and Gigi end up in the cage, end up falling into the forest. And while there, they end up interacting with a bunch of crows who then chase Kiki. You were being quiet. Chase Kiki and Gigi off, and then they realize that the cat fell out of the cage, that the stuffed cat fell out of the cage. So now Kiki needs the cat in order to finish her delivery. So they come up with this plan where she's like, okay, Gigi is going to be the one in the cage when I deliver it, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to get the cat away from the crows or find it, and then I'm going to return, get it back and like get Gigi out of the house and put the cat back in the house. It's like, okay, we'll see how that goes. She gets there, she delivers the cage with the cat in it with Gigi in it, and I don't know if this is a line from the actual Japanese or if it's just when they threw it into the English, but she goes, act stuffed when she, hands it out when she's, delivering it. Cat runs out, who's this little kid. He seems, he's a very hyper boy, and he, takes the cage, runs inside, kind of throws away, Gigi off to the side and wants to put the canary in the new cage that they have. So we have that funny bit there. And, Ket's mom is there and everything, and she's, signing for Kiki, and Kiki flies off to go and try to get to the forest so that way she can figure out what happened to the stuffed cat. While she's going through the forest, she ends up finding this log cabin that has the cat sitting in the window. And while she's at the cabin, she ends up meeting Ursula, who's the owner of the cabin. And Ursula is this young painter who is sitting on top of her cabin, sketching out the crows that are there. Well, you threw it on the floor. What are you going to do now? I ain't getting it for you. I ain't getting it. You want it, you get it. It's like, you want it, you get it. And, so Ursula's like, well, why was it sitting in the forest? Why was it on its own? Hi, can I help you? Up, up, all the way, up, all the way, come on, all the way up. All the way up. See? Look. Pretty Brenda girl. See? Look. You want, well, look over there. Look. Well, you're the one that got down and didn't get your toy. That's not my fault. I love you. She's like, pay attention to me. Hi, attention hog. And, so Kiki and Ursula kind of talk a little bit, and, Kiki explains that it was an accident that the cat fell, and she didn't mean to disturb the crows and everything, and Ursula makes the deal with Kiki. She's like, okay, well, I'll give you the cat back, and then Kiki realizes that the cat is kind of ripped up, and Ursula's like, okay, well, I can fix that, but I'll make a deal with you, and the deal is for Kiki to clean Ursula's, to help clean Ursula's cabin. So Kiki's working on that while Ursula's fixing up the cat. And while this is going on, Gigi is at the house, and Gigi is so they have this big dog there named Jeff, who's adorable. I do not know what kind of dog he's supposed to be, but he is so cute. And so cute and so sweet. And what happens is Jeff actually ends up kind of taking a liking to Gigi, and the adults and Kit are like, oh, he's treating the stuffed cat like it's a puppy. He's taking care of it and everything like that. And Gigi was really worried at first that Jeff was gonna be a really mean dog, thrash the cat around or whatever. But no, Jeff is just very, very gentle and helpful to Gigi. And actually, after Kiki gets the cat back from Ursula after she fixes it, Kiki heads back to the house, and Jeff actually ends up taking Gigi outside under the guise of just having to go outside, and takes Gigi with him. And Gigi runs to Kiki, and he's just like, thank you, where were you? What took so long? Jeff helped me. He's a good dog. He's like, yes, Jeff is a very good dog. And then Jeff takes the stuffed cat back inside. So we have that cute little thing there. And then we cut to, it's a little bit later. I think it's probably maybe a week or two later or something like that. And Kiki is watching the store for a sono. And what happens is, she gets a call, and it's a delivery that she wants, wants to have her, someone that wants to have her make a delivery. And so she's, really excited about that. And then Tombo comes in, and he ends up giving her an invitation to this aviation club party that they're going to have that night. And so Kiki is very, nervous about that. And then also there's another guy that comes in that needs her to do a delivery to this, apartment or whatever. So, and it's a really, really heavy delivery. Now she got it herself. See, you can get it yourself. It's not that hard. Her eyes has this now. It will be chewed. So Kiki is she wants to go to the party, but she doesn't have anything to wear. And Asono's like, but you have that, the nice dress that you wear already. And she's like, and then she's like, oh, I have a delivery. And she has to, rush this other delivery to the really, really heavy delivery to where it needs to go first. And then she flies to the other delivery, which is, she goes to this very nice rich lady's house. And the lady, she's just called Madame throughout the course of the movie. Really? Yes, I love you too. I know you have a toy. You has this thing. I know. Get it. She's like, you're the one that threw it over there. You got it. Go get it. You can get that. You're going to make this a 2-hour-long review if you keep doing that. I don't care if it makes you pet me. I don't care. Hi, yes, I love you. Go get your thing. Go get the toy. Nope. So Kiki goes to the house of Madame, and we meet Madame and her maid Barsa looks like Dola from Castle in the Sky, and even likes flying things and stuff like that. So there's like a reference there. And Madame wants to have Kiki deliver this. Why it's this any type of pie? It's a pumpkin and herring pie, which does not sound good at all. Nothing against the woman, but that does not sound good. And she's, Kiki's supposed to deliver that, but the oven isn't working, so the pie hasn't been cooked. And Madame is still willing to pay Kiki for her for her time in the service and everything, even if Kiki doesn't actually deliver it. And Kiki's like, well, I can't take your money without helping. So Kiki ends up, they see that there's this wood burning stove there. And Kiki's like, well, I know how to work that. If you have what we need, I can help with that. Boop. 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 Boop, 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 boop. I know. I know. You're very, whoa, that's new. Hi. 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 What you doing that for? You're gonna make me spin and you're gonna fall. You keep doing that. Don't do that. And so Kiki gets the wood firing stove going and everything like that, because Kiki knows how to work that, because they have one with her mom back at her house. She has that, and she's probably helped in the bakery a little bit with the stove and everything. So she's helping with that. So they have that pie cooking, and she ends up helping with a few other things around the house, and talking with Madame and Barsa a bit. And Barsa's adorable. She even trying to pretend to ride Kiki's broom at one point. She's like, broom and a black cat. It's just like my great grandmother told me about witches and everything. So, and then as they're talking, Madame points out that her clock actually runs late and that Kiki needs to get going so she can get to her party on time. So what ends up happening is Kiki is supposed to deliver the pie to her granddaughter's birthday party. And, so while on their way there, it starts raining. And Kiki's like, well, I have to get the delivery in. And she takes it there and she delivers it. And unfortunately, Madame's granddaughter is not nearly as polite, as Madame and everything, not nearly as sweet as Madame. And she's kind of like, well, I told Grandma I didn't want these pies and blah, 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 which every kid has been in that situation where it's just like, but I don't want that. Ugh. For me, it was my grandparents would give me clothes, and I was never the biggest fan of clothes. I was never the biggest fan of the fancy clothes. It's just like, I don't want that. Give me Pokemon cards or something like that. Buy me anime. Not that my grandparents ever paid that much attention to that stuff, but that's okay too. But what ends up happening is, Kiki gets home, but she's soaked through, and so she can't go to the party because she doesn't have anything else to wear. And Tombo had been there and he'd waited for her to show up, but he waited a long time, but he eventually had to go and everything. And so the next morning, Kiki is actually kind of sick. And she's in bed and has a fever and everything. And, Asono comes in and takes care of her and gives her porridge and everything like that. Actually, what ends up happening is when Asano comes out the next morning, Gigi is actually kind of banging on the window, and that's what draws Asano's attention and has her come up and find that Kiki's sick in bed with a fever and a headache and everything. So that she helps Kiki get better that way. And then once the next day or after that or whatever, once Kiki's better, Asano sends Kiki on a delivery. And while this has been going on, Gigi actually ends up flirting with the neighbor's cat. Gigi ends up flirting with the cat that belongs to Maki, who was the woman who had Kiki deliver the black cat to Kit. And so Gigi is kind of flirting with Lily and everything like that. At first he thought she was snooty and stuck up, and now he's kind of warmed up to her a bit and everything. So So like they're talking and getting to know each other and everything like that. And like, so Gigi is like, he can talk to other animals, but then he can also just talk to Kiki because he's her familiar. And so there's, that connection there. And so, so Gigi is talking with Lily, and then Kiki goes off on this, delivery, and it ends up that she's delivering it to Tombo. And so it's like Asano set that up because she could tell that like Tombo really liked Kiki, so she sends, Kiki there for the delivery and everything. So it allow Tombo and Kiki to kind of make up. And Tombo shows her what they had been getting ready to, what they were going to be celebrating at the aviation club, and that was they had, made this bike that has like a propeller on the front of it, so that way they can turn it into kind of like, an airplane of some kind. So, and we have it that the big dirigible that keeps talking about, because I love how they use the radio setup in this, because like, Kiki is listening to it at the beginning of the movie. And, she listens to it while she's flying to give her music. She listens to it, before she's going to bed, or, different things like that, where like they actually make the radio rather relevant during the movie, which I like how they do that. And Kiki ends up, Kiki and Tombo end up, riding the bike down to the beach where the giant, Zeppelin was, where the giant, air balloon is, where that is. And they're, going to ride down there and go see that. And on the way down, they kind of actually end up flying a little bit because, like, the propeller's going and everything like that. And, like, Tombo has to get used to being able to, pedal really hard to keep it going and everything. So, they go down and they almost end up crashing. Well, they do kind of crash. And the propeller kind of breaks off, but like they end up being okay and everything like that. And they end up, talking and just kind of relaxing and, just having fun a little bit. And Kiki's like, I'm sorry, I kind of thought you were rude at first. And he's like, yeah, I understand that. My mom kind of, knocks me at times when I'm not being the most polite, or like when I get too obsessed with something and everything like that. So they have that nice moment there where they're actually kind of like connecting a little bit. And then some of Tombo's friends shows up, one of them being Madame's granddaughter. And Kiki actually gets very uncomfortable around them very quickly, and she leaves. And they end up going on a tour of the Spirit of Freedom, or whatever the name of the airship is. They're going on a tour of that. And Kiki goes home, and what ends up happening is between that day, or like that night, and like the next day or whatever, she kind of starts to lose her powers, because, and it's not exactly explained why, but it's just like her powers just kind of stop working. Like it starts off with Gigi more meowing at her more than anything, instead of just talking to her. And then, when he still won't really reply to her beyond meowing at her and acting like a cat, than acting like Gigi. And we even see this where he's even drawn differently in how he actually looks. He's drawn differently than when he's just being like snarky regular Gigi. He's drawn a little bit more like a real cat, which I like how they do that. They make that distinction in the movie, because that is an important distinction in that regard. Yes, it is. And what ends up happening is, Kiki tries flying and it just won't work. And she goes and talks to Asano and tells Asano that she can't, that like she has to stop with the delivery business for the time being. She's like, but please don't kick me out. And Asano's like, I wouldn't kick you out. It's fine. And so, and then we see the big dirigible going by, and, we actually kind of see Tombo waving out the window at where Kiki is. And everything. So we have that cute thing, and like he tries calling, and he's like, Kiki, did you see me waving out the window? And she's like, please don't call here again. And like, so Kiki is very depressed at this point in time. She's very heartbroken and very, heavy hearted at that point in time. And one of the things that I think a lot of people will point out is possibly the reason for why this starts happening, for why her powers start to go away, is because when her and Tombo were down at the beach, he's like, I think it's so awesome that you can fly wherever you want, and you can just, pick up and go wherever you want, because, from flying and everything. She's like, yeah, I really used to like flying until it kind of became my job. And I think that is something where it's like her magic is like testing her type of a thing. And there's a very good analogy for it later on that that Ursula makes to her, because what ends up happening is after Kiki's kind of been in this rut for a little while, a couple of days, week, whatever it is, Ursula shows up in town, and what ends up happening is, Ursula and Kiki talk, and Kiki explains to Ursula what's going on. I'm losing my powers and everything, and I just don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to fix that. And Ursula's like, well, how about you come to my cabin and come out into the, back with me and everything like that. You can come and just, take a vacation for a couple of days. And Kiki's like, okay. And they head off. So we have this cute little traveling sequence with the two of them and everything. And them getting back to Ursula's cabin, and Ursula, Kiki apologizes to the crows again, because Ursula and the crows have kind of become friends. So Kiki apologizes to them. And Kiki goes inside the cabin, and she sees this beautiful painting there that Ursula did. That is, it's a Pegasus, it's a winged horse with like crows, and like a cow that looks like it's trying to jump over the moon is kind of what I kind of think it is. And it's a gorgeous painting, and I love how they like zoom in on different aspects of the painting when Kiki is looking at it, and she just thinks it's gorgeous, because like the last time we saw any form of this canvas, or the last time we saw any canvas inside of Ursula's house, it was blank. And so now we see this beautiful painting there, and I love the painting. If I remember correctly, it is actually based off of an actual real life painting that it is referencing. I think it's called like Ships Flying Over the Rainbow or something like that. But it's supposed to be based of like an actual painting or a series of paintings or something. So I like how that's like a reference there. So I love that. And Ursula ends up explaining to Kiki that, well, that's actually based off of you. That's, we see like the image of a girl riding the horse, and Ursula's like, well, this is supposed to be based off of you, and I couldn't quite get the face right. And Kiki's like, that's supposed to be me? And you want me to model? She's like, I'm not very pretty. And Ursula's like, you have a very pretty face. Now please just go over there and sit, and I can, sketch you. So Ursula's doing the sketches of Kiki. I've done sketches before of people and things. I did, when I was in high school, I did so many art classes just because I love them so much. Drawing several, like take this picture and draw it by working from it upside down to like test your perspective of things and stuff like that. Or, drawing 2D media wasn't always my best. More 3D is generally how I can work better when it comes to, making stuff. 3D tends to work a little bit better for me, because like pottery and other types of clay work I'm really good at, or at least I would if I would get back into it. But so like Ursula and Kiki are talking, and Kiki and Ursula makes the comment of magical powers and drawing and painting seem to be very similar. There were so many times where I wanted to paint over that because I didn't like it at the time. And Kiki's like, but it turned out beautiful. And Ursula's like, I know. And that's, when I saw you, for so long, I couldn't paint. And Ursula and Kiki have this really great discussion throughout the time when like she's sketching Kiki, and then like later on in the evening when they're like sitting before bed and everything like that. And Ursula and Kiki just have this really great conversation that is kind of like, and it's a way of describing Kiki's powers in very similar terms of like where you talk about like writer's block or artist block, or even for people who do sports who will get like the yips where they can't, where it's like, I've done this sport my whole life, and then just for some reason I just can't do it now. I used to be able to do this without even thinking, and now I can't. And a lot of people understand that concept. lot of creative people understand how that concept works. It's, writers will hit writer's block. Even like Stephen King and, James Patterson and all these other amazing authors have admitted that they've hit writer's block at various points in time, where it's just like, in certain books, I hit a writer's block and I just couldn't figure out what to do. I think there's an example from this with Stephen King with one of his books. Don't ask me which one it was. I don't remember. I haven't read any Stephen King books. I was trying to remember if I've actually seen any Stephen King movies, and I'm like, maybe. I don't know. I've driven by the hotel that The Shining is based off of, because it's in like Colorado, and I've driven by that. But like Stephen King in like one of the books is just like, I had so many main characters that like I got halfway through the book and I just had to kill off like half of them, and then I just proceeded with the book because I couldn't figure out what to do with the other ones. So it's like, that stuff happens. Or like, sometimes an author will just make a drastic change because that was what inspired, something inspired them to do that. And painters and sculptors will do the same thing, where it's just like they can try to do something, but if they don't have the right motivation, the right inspiration for it, they just can't do it. And Ursula makes the same comment about like Kiki's powers, and Kiki's like, well, we fly with our souls. And and Ursula's like, well, here's what you do. You just not think about it. You go about your life, you keep doing, you keep working at the bakery and helping out there. You take long walks, you take naps, you go to bed early. You just not think about it, and then eventually you'll be flying again. And sometimes that is what happens. I mean, even YouTubers have gotten to the point where they're just like, I just have creative block because I don't know what to talk about anymore. For certain ones that talk about certain subjects. And that's very, very understandable where that will happen. But so Kiki's like, I guess, I guess that makes sense. I'm like, so, and then the next day or a couple of days later or whatever, when Kiki's, going back into town, she calls Asana to tell her that she's coming back home. And Asana's like, well, the nice lady that you did the nice older lady that you did the delivery for called and wanted to know if you would be able to stop by at any point in time. And Kiki's like, yeah, I can do that. And Kiki stops off at Madame's house, where Madame is waiting for her, and she ends up actually, Kiki shows up there, and I don't remember if Madame actually or if Kiki explains to Madame that she's like kind of suspended the delivery service business because of what's going on, because she kind of seems to be losing her powers. I don't remember if she explains that to Madame or not. But she gets there, and Madame ends up giving her this cake that she made for her that has like Kiki and Gigi on it, on the broomstick. And earlier in the movie, Asano's husband had actually made, because like things that we've learned because of like sourdough bread and stuff like that, people being at home and making all these amazing breads because of the pandemic, you can make all these different designs out of bread. And he made this like bread wreath with like Kiki and Gigi on the broomstick on it and everything like that. And I love how he made that. And like Kiki saw that and then hugged him for it because she was very grateful for it. So, Madame has made a cake that has Kiki and Gigi on it and everything. And Madame's like, would you please ask the girl? She was very kind to me, and I would like you to deliver this to her. And I would like you to see if you can find out from her when her birthday is, so I can make her another one. And Kiki is very grateful for this. And Kiki is also like, well, maybe I can definitely do that, and then maybe I can find out. Maybe she would like to know when the lady's birthday is too, so she can do something for her. So it's just like we see them, them having this friendship. And what ends up happening is, while they're having this conversation, Barca is actually watching on the television because the dirigible is supposed to be taking flight again soon and heading off on its way. And Barca really likes lighter than air travel, which is I am so very certain that is a reference back to the fact that Barca looks like Dola from Castle in the Sky. There has to be a reference there. And what ends up happening is, while they're watching it on the TV, there's like these huge gusts of wind that come through. And what ends up happening is the dirigible actually ends up getting blown to the point where it's like it's getting blown away, even with like it being tied down, and like even with people trying to hold it down, it starts blowing away. And as they watch, the dirigible is like going up and hanging onto this rope trying to hold it down is all these people, and as they all fall off, we see Tombo holding onto the rope, and Kiki is watching this, and she's just like, oh god. And like Barca, okay, Barca has a comment or several comments like, this is terrible, and she's like smiling while she's watching us. I'm like, good god, woman. But she does seem concerned later on. But so Kiki runs out of the house and starts running as fast as she can to downtown, toward where the dirigible is going to be, because it's flying, and well, floating. It's like almost fully vertical, or excuse me, almost fully vertical, and like Tombo's hanging onto it on the, on the rope, like on the nose of it, with like a police car. The police car ends up falling, and Tombo's like hanging on for dear life, and like the captain of the ship of the dirigible is trying to get them to like let the air out of the balloon so they can try to lower Tombo down. And like there's police cars and fire trucks going as fast as they can to try to get different places, and there's people stopping in the streets looking up and watching all of this happen, and there's like news crews reporting on this. And we see different people watching all over the city on their televisions. Like we see Osono and her husband watching, and we see even like Kit and his mom and Jeff watching, and Madame and Barca are watching on their TV and everything as this is happening. And we see like Tombo's friends watching as this is happening too, with like Kiki running through, or with like Kiki trying to make her way there. And at one point she ends up finding this, like a street sweeper or whatever is there, and she's like, looks at him and goes like, can I borrow your broom? And he's like, what do you want my broom for? And she grabs his broom and runs into the middle of the street. And she is literally at this point where she is like desperate to the point where it's like, I need my powers in order to save Tombo, because he's my friend and my powers have to work for me to do this. And we just see her focusing very, very hard on her, to connect with this broom and to get it to fly. And it works. It starts flying. It's a little, it's not quite listening to her, but it is flying. And the guy is just very befuddled by the fact that his broom just got turned into a form of transport. And so Kiki is, riding on the broom, flying as best she can toward where Tombo is, where the dirigible is, which is aiming for the clock tower. The dirigible actually hits the clock tower, and Tombo is trying to get off of the rope that he's hanging on to and get onto the clock tower, so that way he's safe. And that doesn't go very well, and the dirigible ends up actually falling where it is like laying and being held up by like one of it, like the nose is on the clock tower and the other part falls on this other set of buildings. They're gonna have some damage that they're gonna have to pay for on those people's roofs. And then Tombo on the rope is like hanging in the middle, like hanging on still for dear life, which give that kid credit. And Kiki flies in, like the newscaster is like watching this, and it's being aired, and that's where we see everybody watching it, seeing Kiki fly in, and everybody's just like cheering for her to try to like rooting for her to get to the boy, to get to Tombo. And the broom isn't still quite listening to her, but it's kind of working with her, and she's like keeps reaching out to try to get to Tombo, to get to his hand and everything like that, so she can grab him. Tombo actually ends up slipping from the rope, and Kiki does, like, there's a moment, and I love how they use this, where like the sound just goes out. And I'm pretty sure that's something that they did in the actual Japanese as well, but they do it in the English, where the sound just like drops out when Tombo falls, and we see Kiki catch him, and the sound comes back in, and it's just this roar of like just people of like joy as people see that Kiki managed to catch Tombo. And she manages to lower him down, so he's safe and she's safe, and everybody's just cheering, and there's like paper flying out of the windows, and I'm like, I have never understood that. What is the point of this? Why are you throwing random paper out of your windows, people? I get that it's a celebration, but why? And so she saved Tombo, And since she, Kiki and Tombo were getting interviewed, and we see everybody's like celebrating that like Kiki saved Tombo and everything like that. So we get those moments there. And Asano actually ends up going into labor, so her and the husband have to run off, have to go to the hospital and everything to deal with that. And Gigi shows up and he jumps up on Kiki's shoulder, and she can understand him again, so he's back to normal. So that bond has been fixed and everything. So we have that, and so Kiki's really happy at that point. And like that's kind of where the movie ends. But then we also get some of it continued in like the end credit bits, because in the during the credits, we see, Kiki flying on the broom. The guy who gave her, she stole the broom from. She straight up stole his broom, but it's her broom now. It's like, that was my broom. She used my broom. So, we see that. Like, we see Kiki flying while Tombo's, on the bike airplane thing that he's developing, with the aviation club. And we see that. And we see Kiki being much more accepted. We see that Gigi actually got together with Lily, who's the white cat, and they had like several little kittens of their own and everything. And one of them's a little black cat, so we have that, and the other ones are like 3 little white fluffy cats. And like, Kiki is, the delivery service is going really well, and we have it where, we have like another song over the end credits, which I like. And Kiki writes back to her parents. And she's like, "Dear Mom and Dad," what is it? It's "Dear Mom and Dad, how are you? Gigi and I are both both very well. My work's on the right track, and I'm confident. It's been hard sometimes, but I love this town." And so, we see that, Asano and the husband had her baby, had the baby, so the baby's good and Asano's good. And we see, just like all these other, Kiki is much more at home there and everything like that now. And, other fun stuff where we see her and Tombo and everything. She, as I said, she writes back to her parents, and they're very happy that she's, settled in well and doing well and everything. And they're, just really, really proud. And there's just like, there's a gag thing that keeps happening with Kiki's mom, where it's like anytime that she's like really surprised, because like it was when Kiki announced that she was going to be leaving that night, like the vial that her mother was using kind of like broke, because she like flooded it with power and it broke. And like same thing happens here when they get the letter, and like so it breaks again and everything like that, which is funny. So we have that great, great little end thing there that kind of like, shows that Kiki is doing well. And I love how they do that. I love the 2 songs that they use in the movie. They're great. I don't know if it's just like an English version of the Japanese song, since it's not actually someone singing. They would be able to just do it that way. I'm not sure about that, but I like both of the songs that they do. And, I like how they show Kiki gaining more confidence in herself and stuff like that. And as I said, there are the 3 different versions of this. There's the original Japanese version that came out in 1989, and then there was the streamlined version that was the first English adaptation that came out in 1990, and then there was the Disney one that came out in 1997, 1998, with a bunch of other Studio Ghibli movies that came out at that point in time, because they got dubbed into English and everything. And the voice cast for the Disney dub is Kirsten Dunst as Kiki, and Phil Hartman, rest in peace, as Gigi. This was actually one of his last roles that he did, was Gigi, before his untimely death. And he enjoyed it a whole lot. He had a lot of fun with it, and all of that. And the movie is dedicated to him. Tress MacNeille plays Asano. Tress MacNeille is so many different voices on The Simpsons. I believe she is both is Marge and Selma and Thelma. Both is all 3 of them, along with additional voices when they have them and needed. Jennifer Garofalo, or sorry, Janine Garofalo, excuse me, is Ursula. I don't remember what else I've seen her in. There's so many others. The one that is closest to my heart is Debbie Reynolds, plays Madame. And of course, I love Debbie Reynolds. I love Singing in the Rain. I love Unsinkable Molly Brown. She is, of course, the mother of Princess Leia, of Carrie Fisher. And I love Debbie Reynolds, and she's awesome. May she rest in peace. Um, and there's just, a lot of other really good actors and voice actors that ended up in this movie. Um, and I love the movie. I love Kiki's Delivery Service. It's so good. And, it's beautifully done. And, coming off of, and as I stated when I talked about Grave of the Fireflies, it's, it's we do Totoro, that is this very happy, for the most part, movie with a little bit of like the sad with the mom, but the mom's getting better, and then stuff with everything that happens with May going missing, but that gets resolved and everything's better. And then we just have Grave of the Fireflies, where it's just like there's not much that gets better during Grave of the Fireflies. It gets better because they died and they're back together again. The brother and sister are reunited again, and they get to go to heaven. So there's that. And then we just have Kiki, that is, yes, touches on different things, but it also touches on how you welcome an outsider into your community. And I just love how they do that in the movie, and how they show so much of that. And I just love the movie. I love all of the Miyazaki movies I have seen. To varying degrees, but I love all of them. And I can already state this, that probably since what I did after I did all the Disney and the Pixar movies was I did like the rankings chart, I may end up doing one that's a ranking on like the Studio Ghibli movies. But there's not going to be any like bad rankings, most likely, because even like ones that I'm not like they're not my favorite, but I still love to watch them. So that's what I have for this one. I believe the next one would be Porco Rosso, I believe is the next one in the Miyazaki lineup. So everything that's about, embodying cool with flying and airplanes and everything like that, and the Adriatic and seaplane pilots and everything like that. So that'll be great there. So that's what I have. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and please go watch Kiki's Delivery Service if you haven't watched it for a while. It's so fun. And I hope you have a nice rest of your day, and bye.